and he lived in the town of Jericho. Now, Zacharias was not a really well-liked individual. He was the head tax collector for the region. And you know how we all feel about IRS. He was not only the head tax collector, but as he collected money for the government, he helped himself a little bit. And of course, everybody knew what he was doing, that he was collecting not only for the government, but for himself as well. And one day he heard about this man, this teacher, this supposedly Messiah that was coming to their town of Jericho, and he wanted to see who this guy was. And so he heard through the rumblings when Jesus got to the edge of the town, and he ran ahead on the route that he was taking because he was small and kind of stubby, and so he climbed a tree that was a leafless vine or fig tree. He climbed that tree and sat in it, and he waited for Jesus to arrive because he just wanted to see who this great guy was. And so as Jesus got down the road and he walked and he came to the tree, he turned and he looked up and he said, "Zacharias, come down. I need a place to stay tonight and I choose to stay with you." And of course, everyone, the tongues started wagging. How dare Jesus stay with such a sinner? He was a thief. He was a terrible, awful person. But you know what transpired? Is Jesus had never met him, but he accepted him as he was and welcomed him as a kin because they were both family members of the family of Abraham. Zacharias, for the first time in his life, or Zacharias rather, for the first time in his life, felt like he belonged. And out of that simple act that Jesus did for him, he returned 50% to the people that he had taken, 50% of his belongings to the people that he had taken from. In her book, Journey to True Self, Discover Your Divine Magnificent, which is the book that we're reading right now, it states, as our awareness of connection and purpose expands and deepens, we more consciously attract or magnetize the experience we need to grow and evolve towards our highest state of being. Notice being is B-E, as in belong and belonging. Brene Brown quotes in her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, spirituality is recognizing and celebrating that we are all intrinsically connected to each other by a power greater than all of us, and that our connection to that power and to one another is grounded in love and compassion. Currently, I'm taking a class based on the book Pure Human by Greg Braden. Based upon his research, as well as that of many scholars and scientists, the mystery of our origin lies within each and every one of us. According to the many different findings that they have been doing over the many years, they have been able to translate, let me get this right, translate a binary code into a genetic code. And from that genetic code, they've been able to insert it into our DNA. And from that information, they have retrieved from the DNA, after the many steps, the researchers were then able to take that information and form it into letters from the 4 major alphabets in the world. And without telling you or telling you about the entire book, the bottom line is that from the atomic mass of our DNA, the first layer of the code for each cell of our body, wait for it, states God eternal within the body. I'll say that again. God eternal within the body. Based on this scientific information, we know for sure we're all one with the divine and with each other. Regardless of who we are, where we are all connected and we belong. We belong with each other. Would you put the slide up for me, please? In 1943, Maslow's hierarchy of need was published. Now, certainly it didn't look like this one, but I like this chart a little bit better. And according to Maslow's formulation, there are 5 sets of basic needs that are related to each other in the hierarchical strength and what we're trying to do when we become self-actualized. The bottom one of the pyramid begins with our physiological needs and culminates at the top with self-actualization needs. Now, even 80 years after this has been created, and we understand of the needs for belonging, for personal and spiritual growth, as well as that of self-actualization. In 1980, experts indicated that 23% of the American population was lonely. Today, over 40 years later, that statistic has become 52% of loneliness in America. Why do you think that's so? Social media, the aging population. What, Rosemary? Okay. I'm sorry, what? Lack of ability to connect. Any other ideas or thoughts? Oh, politics. Oh, no, that doesn't separate us. Courage to take challenging conversations. Well, loneliness tells us we need social connection, and that's according to Brené Brown. And we all know Brené Brown. We've read her. Someone who lives with loneliness increases the odds of dying at an earlier age by 45%. Now, I kind of have a theory that it all really began, this loneliness stop, was that after World War II, developers began to make garage door openers an option on our homes. You're laughing. Now, I don't remember when we lived here in Chico or in Maine, us having a garage door opener. But when we came back in '64, our new house had a garage door opener. Even though the garage door opener created conveniences for us, because we didn't have to get in and out of the car to open and close the garage door, it also began to isolate us from our neighbors. Because there was a ritual that transpired when we opened that garage door or closed it down, because the neighbors were doing the same thing about that same time. And it was, "Hi, Joe. Hey, Mary. How you doing? How are the kids?" And all of a sudden that stopped happening because we went into our cocoon and we didn't come out. We stopped interacting. And then, of course, by the 1970s, the Walkman came along. And people walked around with headsets on them all the time, listening to the music, not interacting. And so we went everywhere with those. You know, I'm amazed. I'm getting ready to walk the Camino, and so I've been walking 4 and 5 miles in Bidwell Park every day, and I always try to look people in the eye and say hi. Maybe 50% of the time, I get acknowledged. We're living alone. So again, there are no interactions. And of course, now we have cell phones. So we don't have to even talk with each other. We just sit there with our thumbs, clicking away, sending emails. We don't even have to look at each other. In our desire for conveniences and organization and to save time, we have voluntarily isolated ourselves from others. Is it any wonder that individuals are challenged to feel that they belong? A feeling of belonging is associated with love and loyalty and attachment. And when we belong, we feel secure and comfortable and part of a community, just like you feel here when you come through the door. A feeling of belonging is associated with love and loyalty. And when we belong, we feel secure and comfortable and a part. And belonging is also about recognition and acceptance and validation. We feel understood and appreciated for who we are. Belonging is linked to positive outcomes, including increased self-esteem, resilience, and overall well-being. And if we feel we don't belong, we tend to isolate ourselves, and loneliness ensues. Loneliness, researchers found social isolation increases the risk of various unhealthy outcomes, including heart disease, stroke, weakened immune systems, obesity, inflammation, long-term disability, anxiety, depression, and the worst one is premature death. None of those do we ever want to encounter in our lifetime. As a country, we have divided and isolated ourselves. During the election of 2016 for Trump and Clinton, each one of them won individual counties by landslides. Very few counties had mixed results. We aren't even living in a mixed political community anymore. In 2020, we were forced to isolate because of COVID, and it took over 2 years to return to some level of normalcy. One would think that by all of our sorting by politics and beliefs, that surely we would feel connected and belong to numerous organizations and groups. If our beliefs, politics, ideology, and geographic location with people that we think and perceive to be just like us, you would think that we would be surrounded by friends and people with whom we have a deep connection. Even with the continued rise in our sorting process that we each individually do, similarities and loneliness is still on the rise. I'll never forget when my family moved to Maine and I was only 13 years old and I was getting ready to start high school and I didn't know a soul. And my first day of school, I decided I'd wear what I thought was appropriate clothing. And based on California standards. You know, it was the wide skirt with the cremlins underneath that when you walked, it went crinkle, 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 crinkle. And remember, the more petticoats you had underneath you, the farther out your skirt stood. And you loved to rustle when you walked. And of course, my socks were rolled down so that they were all the way at the bottom of my Oxfords. Well, that was certainly not what they wore in Maine. It was pleated plaid skirts with knee-high socks. It was like being in a foreign land. My clothes were different. I had a different accent that was funny to them. And the thick cat-eye glasses that were popular in California were not very inviting. Talk about feeling lonely. Dr. Dietly points out we are not only connected by DNA, but also by shared energy. She states, taking the concept that we are all connected through universal consciousness a step further reveals that being connected also means that all wisdom and power of this shared energy is within us. Nothing outside of us can produce any more support than what is available within us through our connection to the vastness of our shared energy with all that is. We are more powerful and wiser than we even realize. Oh, how much easier life would be if at 14 I had known my connection to the divine and others. How many of you have felt lonely at some time in your life? Almost all of you. Often the thing that gets in the way of our belonging is fear. It's the fear of being vulnerable. We fear we will be hurt. We feel totally disconnected and fear the pain that it brings. We don't want to fail, and so we fear interaction with others because of that possibility of being rejected. The wall of fear will get in our way every time. Fear of terrorism further divides us from reaching out to others of different races, languages, religions, and beliefs. And our government right now is telling us that DEI, diversity, equality, and intrusion is in any form is no longer acceptable in America. Well, belonging is part of TEI. According to a New York Times article, a list of works has been created that are unacceptable for federal employees to use because they are associated with DEI. Belong and a sense of belonging are on that list of words. I wonder if unity and oneness and connection will also be added one of these days. We must not let our government tell us the words that are acceptable and that we can use. We cannot continue to see ourselves as an island. We are not alone. We are connected to one another with the divine energetically, spiritually, and through our DNA. We must make an effort to create a sense of belonging. Yes, it will take effort. Yes, there might be rejection. Seek others that have similar interests and engage them in conversations and friendships. Be patient. Our differences were not created overnight. It is our task to engage and support others in the same way we would be supported. Focus on your similarities, not your differences. Remember, Ernest Holmes told us to be open at the top. And that applies here as well as in our spirituality. Be open to new ways of thinking. Be who you are. It allows others to know who you truly are. Your authenticity will create meaningful relationships. Create a space of safety for others. If we can be honest and with who we truly are, then a foundation of acceptance will develop with others. Listening is a powerful tool. Those who are lonely and feel left out are often just in need of someone to listen. We all need to be heard. Brené Brown once said, "Those who have a strong sense of love and belonging have the courage to be imperfect. Have the courage to be imperfect and reach out to others. Know that divine right action is transpiring that when you do reach out." Author and psychologist Kim Samuel published an article in Psychology Today about her experience with Nelson Mandela. About 20 years ago, Kim had an opportunity to go to a dinner that honored both Nelson and Garcia Mandela. Kim had met Garcia previously, who asked how she was doing since her father had died. Well, Kim explained to her that the most difficult part was not her father's disability, but rather the isolation that accompanied his struggles and his illness. Mandela, who had spent almost 3 decades in prison with long periods in solitary confinement, watched quietly as Kim shared her reflections. Kim noticed and she turned to Nelson and said, "Of course, you would know all about isolation." He paused to think. "No, I've never been isolated." "Not even on Robben Island?" she asked, referring to the notorious prison on a rock in the Indian Ocean where he and other inmates were kept for decades. "Nope. On Robben Island, we were all brothers and working together with a common purpose. I was never, ever alone." Mandela continued, "I have seen isolation. I have seen it in the child with AIDS to whom no one in this village will love or care for or touch or feed or house. I have seen isolation and it is very bad." Here was a man who had been isolated in the worst conditions and yet stayed connected with his community with a shared sense of purpose. Each day, he and his brothers served the cause of their people's freedom, understanding their personal struggles as a microcosm of what their nation was going through. They built a tremendous and powerful sense of solidarity and belonging that endured the temptations of that prison. Mandela never lost sight of the traditions that gave him a strong sense of his purpose in the world, the love of his homeland, or the wisdom transmitted to him from his elders. He drew from these foundations as he developed a sense of how to emerge from the prison where he had lived for over 30 years undiminished. His reflection on the child with AIDS indicated that there was more to isolation than psychology. We know isolation in our community. It's the senior who lives alone, who has lost all of their friends and has no living relatives. It's the homeless family that lost what they had in the fires and now lives in a beat-up van. It's the transgender teen trying to understand themselves and receive no support from others. It's the child who is bullied for their differences in school. It's the individual who sees no reason for continuing to live because the pain is so great and reaches for a bottle of pills. We are reminded in Matthew 25, "For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. Truly, I tell you, inasmuch as you have done it to one of the least of these, you did it to me." What we do for each other, we are doing for ourselves. We are one with each other. There is no separation. The only verse missing, I believe, is "When I was lonely, you made me feel I belonged." I love how Albert Marshall, who was an elder with the Moose Clan of the Micmac, a nation in Canada, explains how his people have survived together for over 18,000 years and maintained a balance with the world around them. The key, he says, is when they act and work together as a group. The metaphor that he shared was, he said, "Look at that tree, look at the roots under the tree. You see them as roots. We see them as roots holding hands. They support each other. Whose hands are we holding? Who are we asking to join us? How can we help others belong? Indeed, we are one. We are one in this together. We all belong. This is the truth in my life, and this is the truth in yours, and so it is. Daryl? Thank you.